Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. It is the only known record of what happened in those final seconds. Tonight, we unseal the forgotten case file of the last known photograph. An image so disturbing, its existence has been officially denied for over half a century. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some images are not meant to be seen. They are prisons for what they capture. Welcome to the Obsidian Archive. Tonight we unseal a file that officially does not exist. It has no index number in any public catalog. Its contents are not data, they are a contagion. We are talking about File 734, the sterile, unassuming manila folder that contains what is known in clandestine circles as the last known photograph. Before we can even begin to discuss the image itself, we must first understand the object. Because that's what it is treated as. Not a piece of art, not a memory, but a contained anomaly. The file is kept within a climate-controlled vault, 3 sublevels beneath a decommissioned signals intelligence facility in the Utah desert. It is not stored with other documents. It rests alone on a lead-lined pedestal inside a Faraday cage. Access requires 3 separate biometric clearances and a final mechanical key held by a custodian who is rotated every 90 days for, quote, psychological preservation. The file itself feels cold to the touch, unnaturally so even through the mandatory insulated gloves. The cover is stamped with a single designation, Item 734 Omega. No agency markings, no dates, no clues. Inside there is a single sheet of acid-free paper, heavily redacted with thick black ink. Most of the text is gone, but a few phrases remain, like fragments of a forgotten language. Causal entropic cascade. Non-visual spectrum apprehension. And the most chilling of all, observer becomes the aperture. Beneath this document lies the photograph. It is not in a protective sleeve. It is a simple 8x10 gelatin silver print, its edges slightly curled. The paper stock is thick, characteristic of the mid-20th century. But the moment you see it, you understand the precautions. The image doesn't just sit there, it seems to absorb the light in the room, creating a tangible patch of cold, dead air around it. The official inventory log, which I acquired through a trusted source, lists its physical properties with unnerving precision. Mass, 3.41 grams. Ambient temperature differential, minus 7.2 degrees Celsius. Spectral reflectivity, near 0 in the ultraviolet range. They have studied this thing. They have measured it. They fear it. They fear what happens when it is observed for too long. File 734 is more than a record. It's a containment protocol for a picture that actively resists being seen. A photograph that looks back. Every classified truth requires a plausible lie to shield it. For the last known photograph, that lie is both mundane and masterfully crafted. If you were to somehow gain access to the sanitized, need-to-know briefing on Item 734, you would be told a story of a tragic accident. The official narrative, outlined in a heavily abridged report titled A77 Inquiry, Vance Incident, states that the photograph is the last known work of a brilliant but unstable chemical engineer and experimental photographer named Elias Vance. The story goes that in the autumn of 1958, Vance was working on a highly volatile and experimental photographic emulsion in his isolated home studio. He was allegedly trying to create a film capable of capturing radiation signatures, a project of keen interest to the military during the height of the Cold War. The report claims that a chemical fire broke out in his darkroom. Vance, in a final desperate act, supposedly pointed his camera at the inferno and took a single picture before being consumed by the flames. The resulting image, they claim, is nothing more than a tragic, abstract artifact. A chaotic swirl of light and shadow caused by the flash ignition of exotic chemicals on the photographic plate. The unusual properties of the object, the coldness, the light absorption, are dismissed as residual effects of this unique chemical reaction, a kind of permanent photochemical scarring. The report concludes that the object is kept in isolation, not because it is dangerous, but for its scientific value, and as a solemn memorial to a researcher who died in the line of duty. It's a clean, tidy story. It explains the secrecy by tying it to Cold War paranoia. It explains the image's strangeness with plausible-sounding science. It even gives us a tragic hero. But it's a narrative riddled with holes. There was no fire reported at Vance's property on the alleged date. Local fire department records show no call-outs. His death certificate is sealed by federal order, and the cause of death is listed simply as misadventure. Furthermore, independent analysis of weather patterns and seismic activity for that entire month shows no anomalies, no tremors, no atmospheric events that would correspond to a chemical explosion of the magnitude described. The official narrative is a carefully constructed facade, a firewall built of paper and ink designed to stop any further inquiry. They want the world to see a random, meaningless pattern born of tragedy. But the truth is far more deliberate and far more terrifying. The photograph isn't the result of an accident. It's the successful result of an experiment they never wanted completed. To understand the photograph, we must understand the man who took it. Elias Vance was not merely a photographer. He was a cartographer of the unseen. Born in 1912, he was a prodigy in chemistry and optics, but he shunned academia and the corporate world. He saw photography not as a means to capture reality, but to dissect it. His journals, of which only a few scorched pages have ever been recovered, are filled with frantic scribbles not about f-stops and shutter speeds, but about perceptual thresholds and temporal resonance. He believed that a camera, with the right lens and a sufficiently sensitive chemical emulsion, could photograph more than just light. He theorized it could capture echoes of events, emotional residue, even glimpses of what he called adjacent realities. His colleagues from his brief university tenure described him as brilliant but unnervingly intense. One former associate is quoted in a declassified memo stating, "Elias didn't want to take a picture of a thing. He wanted to take a picture of the space the thing had displaced." He spent the last decade of his life as a recluse in a remote cabin in the Pacific Northwest, a location chosen for its low levels of electromagnetic interference. He built his own equipment. He ground his own lenses from quartz and obsidian. He mixed his emulsions using formulas that included rare earth elements, and according to one rumor, even biological components. His final project was what he called the chrono-emulsion. He believed that silver halide crystals could be coaxed into a quantum state, allowing them to react not just to photons in the present moment, but to the entire history of photons that had passed through that specific point in space. He was trying to photograph time itself. The official narrative paints him as a victim of a chemical fire, a man destroyed by his own volatile materials. But his notes tell a different story. His last legible entry, penned in a shaky hand, does not speak of failure. It speaks of a breakthrough. It reads, "The emulsion is stable. The lens holds focus on a point that isn't there. Tonight I don't aim it at the stars. I aim it at the silence in the room. I will photograph the absence. I will photograph the thing that is left when everything else is gone." Elias Vance didn't die in an accident. He aimed his camera at something he shouldn't have seen, and he succeeded in capturing it. The last known photograph isn't a picture of a fire. It's a picture of what Vance found waiting for him in the silence. Let us now turn our focus to the image itself. At first glance, it is disorienting. A chaotic vortex of black and gray. It looks like smoke or ink dropped in water. The official explanation of a chemical fire seems plausible for a fleeting moment. But the longer you look, the more your mind struggles to process what it's seeing. There is a sense of impossible depth. The patterns seem to shift in your peripheral vision. This is the first layer of its anomalous nature, a documented cognito-hazardous effect that induces mild vertigo and temporal disorientation in observers. But the true anomaly is not perceptible to the naked eye. Under a high-powered electron microscope, the grain structure of the photograph defies explanation. In a typical gelatin silver print, the grains are random, chaotic clusters of metallic silver. But in the last known photograph, the grains are arranged in a perfect, repeating pattern that is not symmetrical in any known dimension. It is a fractal geometry that seems to operate on principles our mathematics cannot describe. One physicist, who was secretly contracted to study the print in the 1980s, described it in a leaked report as a two-dimensional representation of a multi-dimensional object. He stated that the arrangement of the silver particles was not random. It was information. He theorized that the image is a kind of compression, a sliver of a vastly more complex reality flattened onto the emulsion. But the most disturbing discovery came when they analyzed the chemical composition of the dark areas. The ink in the vortex. It is not silver. In fact, it is not composed of any element on the periodic table. Spectrographic analysis returns a null result, a void. These areas do not reflect light, nor do they absorb it. They annihilate it. The photons simply cease to exist upon contact. This is physically impossible. It violates the law of conservation of energy. This is the core of the anomaly. The photograph is not just a recording of light, it is a physical tear in space-time. The blackness in the image is not the absence of light, it is the presence of an absolute absence. Elias Vance did not photograph an object or an event. He photographed a concept that our universe was not meant to contain. The anomaly in the emulsion is proof that he succeeded. The photograph is not a window. It is a hole. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Narrator. In the immediate aftermath of the photograph's unauthorized leak, the official response was not one of panic, but of calculated, suffocating silence. For 72 hours, the world held its breath. News agencies that had dared to publish the grainy image found their phone lines dead, their sources vanishing. Then, the machine of state whirred to life. A press conference was called at the Pentagon, a stage meticulously set with flags and stern-faced officials. The man at the podium was General Marcus Thorne, a figure carved from granite and decorated with the accolades of a dozen shadow wars. His voice, a low baritone designed to command obedience, dismissed the image as a sophisticated foreign hoax. He spoke of hostile disinformation campaigns and psychological warfare. The photograph, he assured the public, was a fabrication, a composite of weather balloon anomalies and darkroom trickery, designed to incite fear and destabilize the nation. But even as he spoke, the documents tell a different story. Declassified files, so heavily redacted they resemble abstract art, reveal the frantic internal scramble. We see the birth of an entity known only by its code name, Project Chimera. This wasn't an investigation into the photograph's origin. It was a containment protocol. Its mandate was threefold: discredit the evidence, neutralize the source of the leak, and erase all public and private records of the event and the location it depicted. Memos stamped with the highest security classifications speak of cognitive hazards and mimetic contagion. They weren't afraid of a hoax. They were terrified of the truth. They worried that the image itself carried a payload, that simply viewing it could alter perception, or worse. Project Chimera deployed assets from every branch of the intelligence community. They seeded counter-narratives in the press, creating stories of eccentric local artists and elaborate college pranks. They commissioned their own photographic experts to publish papers detailing how such an image could be faked, providing a plausible, scientific-sounding explanation for the public to latch onto. But behind the scenes, Chimera's retrieval teams moved with silent efficiency. They visited the homes of journalists, photographers, and anyone believed to possess a copy. They confiscated materials, not with warrants, but with quiet, unassailable authority. The official denial was a masterclass in gaslighting an entire population. It was a shield, and behind it, a frantic, desperate effort was underway to understand what had been captured on that single piece of film, and to ensure that no one else ever would. Narrator: every ghost story needs a haunted house. For the last known photograph, the ghost is an entire town, Havenwood, Colorado. If you search for it on a modern map, you will find nothing. No roads, no ruins, no markers. Just a blank space in the Pike National Forest, an unnatural void in the cartography. But Havenwood was real. Census records from 1950 show a population of 814 souls. It was a mining town, nestled in a remote box canyon, a place that time seemed to have forgotten. They had a post office, a general store, a single-room schoolhouse. We have archival photographs, faded images of smiling families at town picnics, of miners with soot-stained faces holding their daughters' hands. They were real people, living real lives. The town's primary industry was the Morning Star mine, which officially extracted silver and zinc. Yet geological surveys from the era show no significant deposits of those minerals in the region. What they do show are unusually high concentrations of rare earth elements and quartz crystals with peculiar resonant properties. The official story is that the mine ran dry in the early 1960s, and the town, like so many others, simply withered and died. The residents moved on, the buildings were torn down for lumber, and the forest reclaimed the land. A tidy, plausible explanation. But it's a lie. The last confirmed contact with Havenwood was an outbound mail delivery on October 12, 1963. The next driver, scheduled 2 days later, found the road into the canyon, blocked by a military checkpoint. He was told A chemical spill from the mine had contaminated the area, and it was under indefinite quarantine. No spill was ever reported. No federal disaster funds were ever allocated. The families of Havenwood's residents, scattered across the country, received form letters stating their loved ones had been relocated as part of a confidential government program. They were given stipends and a stern warning to ask no further questions. The town was systematically erased. Maps were redrawn, records were altered or lost in administrative fires. Havenwood was unpersoned, its history rewritten as a footnote that never existed. We believe the last known photograph was taken on the outskirts of Havenwood, looking down into the canyon on that final night. The anomalous light, the strange figures, they weren't just in the sky. They were in the town. The official quarantine wasn't to keep people out. It was to keep whatever happened in Havenwood from getting out. Narrator. Before the photograph, before the denial, before the disappearance of a town, there was a voice in the static. Miles away from Havenwood, in a remote fire lookout tower, a man named Frank Carter was listening. Carter was a seasonal Forest Service employee, but his true passion was amateur radio. His post, perched high above the tree line, was a perfect place to scan the airwaves. On the night of October 12, 1963, he was documenting atmospheric disturbances, his pen scratching away in a standard issue logbook. We have that logbook. It was discovered years later in a box of his belongings, long after his own mysterious death in a supposed hiking accident. For hours, the entries are routine: signal strengths, weather notes, snippets of distant conversations. But then, at 23:47, the tone changes. The handwriting becomes frantic. The ink bled from the pressure of the pen. Local frequency flooded. Not weather. A hum, like a billion insects. A few lines down. 23:51. It's a voice. No, voices. Overlapping. Can't make out words. It sounds geometric. Sharp. Carter was a seasoned operator. He knew the difference between interference and something else. He tried to pinpoint the source, and his triangulation notes point directly toward the geographic coordinates of Havenwood. Then comes the most chilling entry, timed at 0013. He managed to isolate a single panicked transmission from the town's local sheriff's band. The transmission is broken, choked with static, and a strange, warbling echo. But Carter transcribed what he could. All the lights are wrong. It's not the mine. God, they're not even touching the ground. The transmission cuts off. Replaced, Carter writes, by the hum. A pure, resonant tone that he claimed made his teeth ache and the glass in his window vibrate. He describes the sound not just as something he heard, but as something he felt. A pressure building inside his skull. His final entry for the night is a single shaky sentence. The sky is opening. This log is the first piece of corroborating evidence. It is the audio track to the silent horror of the last known photograph. It confirms that something profound and terrifying was happening on the ground in Havenwood. An event that began not with a flash of light, but with a sound that broke the rules of physics. A chorus of voices speaking in a language not meant for human ears. Narrator. A photograph is a memory captured in silver and light. But what if the memory it holds is not from our world? To truly understand the last known photograph, we must go beyond the paper print and examine the source, the original cellulose nitrate negative. For decades, it was believed to have been destroyed by Project Chimera. But a copy, made by the original photographer just before his disappearance, survived. It is a fragile, ghost-like artifact, and under microscopic analysis, it reveals secrets the print could never show. We shared high-resolution scans with a team of independent analysts under strict anonymity. A forensic photography expert noted immediate anomalies. "The grain structure is impossible," she reported. "It's almost crystalline. Under magnification, the silver halide particles aren't clumped randomly as they should be. They're arranged in repeating complex geometric patterns, almost like a circuit board. Furthermore, there are no signs of darkroom manipulation. No double exposure, no composite layering. Whatever this is," she concluded, "it was all there, in front of the lens, in a single moment of time." A physicist specializing in optics was drawn to the source of the unnatural light in the image. It emanates from the strange figures, but it doesn't behave like light. There's no lens flare. It doesn't cast coherent shadows. It's as if the light itself has mass or is bending the space around it, he theorized. The spectral analysis is off the charts. It contains wavelengths we've only ever detected in the radiation from collapsing stars, yet here it is, in a Colorado canyon. But the most disturbing discovery came from examining the figures themselves. In the positive print, they are dark, indistinct silhouettes. But on the negative, where dark becomes light, they glow. And within that glow, there is information. Using fractal analysis software, a data scientist found what she could only describe as compressed data. It wasn't a language, not in any human sense. It was pure, raw information, encoded into the very fabric of the image. The patterns in the grain, the frequency of the light, the impossible geometry of the figures, it's all part of a message. The last known photograph isn't just a picture of an event. It is the event. It's a slice of space-time that doesn't belong to us, captured by accident. The negative is not a recording. It is a relic, an artifact left behind by something that momentarily tore a hole in our reality. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some images are not meant to be seen twice. Welcome back to the Obsidian Archive. In our previous chapter, we detailed the provenance of the infamous photograph known only as Item 734, or, as it has become known in hush circles, the last known photograph. We discussed its discovery within a sealed evidence locker, decades after the official case was closed. But the official case was a lie, a placeholder for a truth too disturbing to acknowledge. The official report states that the photograph depicts a lone, unidentified figure standing at the edge of the now abandoned Blackwood quarry, a simple, albeit eerie, image of desolation. But look closer. In the periphery, where the camera's lens begins to distort and the light fails, something else resides. It's a detail missed by the initial investigators, or more likely, a detail they were instructed to ignore. Forensic photographic analysts, working from a high-resolution scan of the original negative, uncovered an anomaly. It is not an artifact of the film, not a chemical burn from the developing process, nor a simple trick of light and shadow. It is a second subject. Barely perceptible, it appears as a tall, unnaturally thin silhouette, partially obscured by the crumbling rock face. Its proportions are wrong. The limbs seem too long, the posture impossibly contorted, as if it's folded into the shadows themselves. Unlike the central figure, whose features are blurred but recognizably human, this second entity defies easy classification. It has no discernible features, no clothing, just a seamless, light-absorbing presence that seems to drink the very grain of the photograph around it. We sent the enhanced images to Dr. Alistair Finch, a specialist in optical forensics. His report was chilling. He stated, and I quote, "The entity in the periphery does not refract light in a way consistent with any known physical object or photographic artifact. It appears less as an object photographed and more as a void in the photograph itself, a section of the negative that has been fundamentally canceled." A void, a cancellation. This wasn't just a person hiding in the shadows. This was something that didn't belong. The presence of this second subject shatters the lone wanderer theory. It reframes the entire scene from one of quiet melancholy to one of imminent, silent threat. Who or what was watching the primary subject? Was the photographer, Elias Vance, even aware of it when he pressed the shutter? This shadow in the frame transforms the image from a simple picture into a record of the final moments before an unknown event. The central figure is no longer the subject. They are the bait. A photograph is a ghost, a single moment, stolen from time, preserved in silver nitrate. But what of the person who stole it? Elias Vance was not a famous photographer. He was a recluse, a man obsessed with capturing images of urban decay and forgotten places. His small, cluttered apartment, which doubled as his darkroom, was the only world he seemed to inhabit. He was reported missing on October 9, 1978, 3 days after the estimated date the last known photograph was taken. There were no signs of a struggle. His wallet and keys were on the kitchen counter next to a cold cup of coffee. His bed was unmade. It was a scene of mundane, everyday life, abruptly paused. But in the dark room, the story was different. The air was thick with the acrid smell of fixer, a single red safe light casting an infernal glow over the scene. Trays of developing chemicals were left out, their contents having long since evaporated into a crystalline crust. And on his workbench, next to an enlarger, sat his prized camera, a Leica M4. The back was open. It was empty. Police initially treated it as a standard missing persons case. They assumed Vance had simply walked away from his life. But the details didn't add up. Friends, of which he had few, described him as meticulously organized, almost pathologically so. He would never have left his darkroom in such a state, and he certainly would never have abandoned his camera. For Vance, that Leica was more than a tool. It was an extension of his own eye. The true anomaly, however, was the film. Dozens of developed rolls were neatly cataloged on a shelf. But all the unprocessed film was gone. Every single roll, except one. A single unmarked canister was found tucked away inside a hollowed-out book titled Studies in Light and Shadow. This canister contained the negative for the last known photograph. Why was this one roll saved? Why was it hidden? It suggests Vance knew he had captured something extraordinary, something dangerous. The prevailing theory among unofficial researchers is that Vance developed the film, saw the second subject, the shadow in the frame, and understood the terrible significance of what he had witnessed. He didn't just walk away. He ran. He hid the single most important piece of evidence and fled from whatever entity he had inadvertently captured on film. His disappearance is inextricably linked to that final chilling image. He wasn't just the photographer. he became the second victim, his fate as unknown and terrifying as that of the figure at the quarry's edge. In any investigation, the timeline is the spine. It provides structure, a sequence of cause and effect. But in the case of the last known photograph, the spine is broken, twisted into a knot of contradictions. The official narrative, constructed from the few available pieces of evidence, is fragile and easily dismantled. Let's start with the date. Forensic meteorologists analyzed the shadows and atmospheric conditions in the photograph. They concluded it was taken on or around October 6, 1978, at approximately 4:45 p.m. This aligns with the coroner's initial estimate for the time of death of the quarry victim. So far, so simple. But this is where the timeline begins to fracture. Police found a receipt in Elias Vance's apartment from a diner 20 miles away from the Blackwood quarry. The receipt was for a coffee and a slice of pie. It was time-stamped October 6th, 4:52 p.m. It is physically impossible for Vance to have taken the photograph at the quarry at 4:45 p.m. and then been at that diner 20 miles away just 7 minutes later. Was the meteorological analysis wrong, or was the timestamp on the receipt incorrect? We investigated both. The meteorological data is robust, cross-referenced with National Weather Archives. The shadows do not lie. We then tracked down the original owner of the diner. He confirmed their cash register's clock was notoriously fast, but never by more than 5 minutes. It certainly wouldn't account for a 20-mile journey. This discrepancy creates a paradox. It suggests two mutually exclusive events happening almost simultaneously. The contradictions deepen when we examine Vance's own notes. In a journal, his last entry, dated October 5th, reads, "The light at Blackwood is wrong. It feels hungry. I will go back tomorrow earlier, before sunset." This indicates an intent to be there on the 6th, but earlier, not late afternoon. Why did he change his plan? Or did he? The most unsettling piece of evidence is an undeveloped roll of film from a traffic camera 2 blocks from Vance's apartment, which was seized as part of the initial investigation, but never analyzed. The Obsidian Archive filed a request to have it processed. On that film, dated October 7th, a full day after the photograph was supposedly taken, a figure matching Vance's description is seen leaving his apartment building. He is walking quickly, looking over his shoulder, and carrying nothing. Not his camera bag, not his wallet, nothing. The timeline isn't just conflicting, it's impossible. It suggests that the photograph, the diner receipt, and Vance's final movements are all true, yet cannot coexist in a linear sequence of events. It's as if the photograph itself exists outside of conventional time, an anchor point for a series of events that refuse to align.
Every cold case has its holy grail. A missing document, a lost testimony. For the mystery of the last known photograph, it is a 6-page report filed under John Doe, 78-349. The autopsy of the man found at Blackwood Quarry. The official cause of death was listed as exposure, the case closed. But whispers within law enforcement circles told a different story, of a file so disturbing it was buried in the deepest level of the county archives. After years of legal challenges, we obtained a copy. It is almost entirely useless. Page after page is a sea of black ink, thick bars of redaction that obscure nearly every medically relevant detail. Cause of death? Redacted. Distinguishing marks and features? Redacted. Toxicology results? Redacted. But redaction itself tells a story. You don't redact a simple case of death by exposure.
You redact something you don't want the public to see, something you cannot explain. We can, however, analyze what little text remains. Certain words and phrases were left untouched, likely by clerical error. On page 2, under General Condition of Remains, the words cellular decay, inconsistent with timeline, are visible. On page 3, the phrase no signs of predation yet is followed by a long black bar. The most chilling fragment is on page 5, a handwritten note from the medical examiner, Dr. Miles Corbin, to the lead detective. Most of it is redacted, but the final sentence remains, stark and terrifying. I have been a coroner for 30 years, and I have never seen bone fractures like this. It is not an impact. It is a resonance. Resonance. What could that possibly mean? Dr. Corbin retired 2 weeks after signing this report and has refused all interviews ever since. We know the body was identified through dental records, but the name has been redacted. We believe this John Doe is the primary subject in the photograph, the man at the quarry's edge. The redactions are not there to protect the victim's privacy. They are there to contain a truth that defies rational explanation. They hide the physical evidence of what the second subject, the shadow in the frame, is capable of. The black ink on the page is a mirror of the black void in the photograph. Both serve the same purpose: to conceal an incomprehensible horror. The report doesn't solve the mystery. It becomes the mystery. It confirms that whatever happened at Blackwood Quarry was not an act of man, nor an act of nature. It was something else entirely. The last known photograph was not just a picture of a man before he died. It was a picture of a man being unmade. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some images are not meant to be seen. Narrator. In the vast archive of the unexplained, certain artifacts defy simple categorization. They are data points without a graph, whispers in a hurricane of noise. None are more unsettling than the image known only as the last known photograph. The official story, the one sanctioned and disseminated through carefully selected academic channels, is neat, tidy, and ultimately insufficient. This is Theory 1, a trick of the light, a fleeting dance of atmospheric energy. According to reports declassified in the early 2000s, the object captured by freelance photographer Alexei Volkov on that desolate mountain pass was nothing more than a highly unusual confluence of meteorological events. Experts from state-sponsored institutes were quick to label it a complex, transient, luminous event. They spoke of sprites, elves, and jets, forms of upper atmospheric lightning that occur far above the thunderclouds. They theorized that under unique magnetic field conditions, a plasma discharge could have occurred at a much lower altitude, interacting with supercooled water droplets and ice crystals to create the spectacle Volkov captured. Dr. Eris Thorne, a lead atmospheric physicist quoted in the initial report, described it as a once-in-a-century alignment of solar wind intensity, geomagnetic fluctuation, and tropospheric pressure. It sounds convincing. It's cloaked in the language of science, designed to soothe, to explain, to close the file. But the file remains open, because the explanation, like a poorly fitting key, refuses to turn the lock. Transient, luminous events are, by their very definition, transient. They last for milliseconds. Eyewitness accounts from a nearby village, accounts that were later redacted from the official report, claimed the phenomenon was visible for over 7 minutes, hanging silently in the sky. pulsing with a cold, internal light. Furthermore, sprites and elves occur at altitudes exceeding 50 kilometers. Volkov's photograph, based on triangulation with the mountain range, places the object at less than 3 kilometers from his position. It was low, it was stable, and it was silent. The theory also fails to account for the widespread electromagnetic interference reported in a 20-kilometer radius. Compasses spun wildly. Radio communication was severed. The local power grid experienced a surge that fried transformers across the valley. These are not the hallmarks of ice crystals and distant lightning. They are the signatures of an immense, localized energy source. The atmospheric phenomenon theory is not an explanation. It is a story. A placid surface designed to conceal the turbulent depths beneath, to discourage us from looking closer at the photograph itself, at the impossible geometry held within its frame, and at the man who took it, who was never seen again.
Narrator. When natural explanations crumble under the weight of evidence, we are forced to look toward the unnatural, toward the hand of man. Theory. 2 abandons the notion of coincidence and steps into the shadow world of black projects and clandestine technology. This theory posits that Alexei Volkov did not capture a meteorological ghost, but rather the operational test of a highly classified experimental device. Volkov was a known storm chaser and independent journalist, drawn to remote locations and extreme weather, the perfect cover for being in the right place at the wrong time. Or perhaps, the wrong place at the right time. The region where he disappeared was long rumored to be a dead zone for aviation, a vast expanse of restricted airspace controlled by the Ministry of Defense. Locals called it the Polygon. Files obtained through Freedom of Information requests are almost entirely blacked out, citing national security. But whispers persist of a research facility buried deep within the mountain, a place codenamed the Stargazer Initiative. This theory suggests the object in the photograph is an advanced propulsion system or an energy projection device. Analysis of the image reveals elements that defy natural formation, a lattice-like internal structure with impossibly perfect right angles, a metallic, non-reflective surface that seems to absorb light, and a shimmering corona that does not radiate heat in a way consistent with any known plasma. It appears manufactured, engineered. Proponents of this theory point to the symmetrical energy venting visible at its base, almost like stabilization thrusters. Was it an anti-gravity platform, a localized weather control system, or something far more exotic? The electromagnetic pulse that disabled the region aligns perfectly with the theoretical side effects of high-energy field propulsion experiments.
They were testing something powerful, something unstable, and an independent photographer documented their failure or their success. His disappearance, therefore, ceases to be a mystery and becomes a grim necessity. He was not a victim of the elements. He was a loose end. His camera was found smashed at the scene, but the film canister was gone. The version of the photograph we have today was not recovered from his equipment. It was leaked years later from an anonymous source within the intelligence community. This wasn't just an accident, it was a cover-up. The photograph is the only surviving proof of a technology that officially does not exist, a technology governments would do anything to protect. Alexei Volkov paid the ultimate price for his single, history-altering snapshot. Narrator. The visual information contained within the last known photograph is disturbing enough. But in the digital age, a picture is more than just pixels. It is a container, a vessel for data, both visible and invisible. As the leaked image proliferated across secure networks and dark web forums, a new generation of investigators began to look not at the object in the sky, but at the very fabric of the file itself. They performed deep forensic analysis, running spectral and hexadecimal scans that peeled back the layers of its digital DNA. And they found something that should not have been there. Embedded within the noise floor of the image, woven into the random grain of the film scan, was a repeating, non-random block of data. It was a message, a highly sophisticated military-grade cryptographic signature, dubbed the Cerberus Cipher by the online collective that discovered it. The signature is a marvel of encryption. It's a triple asymmetric key paradox, reportedly quantum-resistant, a digital lock so complex that the world's most powerful supercomputers have failed to brute force it. The existence of this signature transforms the entire mystery. The photograph is no longer passive evidence of a past event. It is an active, locked data packet. The questions then become terrifyingly complex. Who put it there? The prevailing theory is that Alexei Volkov himself, anticipating the danger he was in, embedded the signature. Was he more than just a journalist? Did he have connections to intelligence agencies? Was he using a pre-arranged digital dead man's switch to secure his findings? If so, the signature could be the key to unlocking a trove of data, coordinates, technical specifications, names, everything needed to expose the secret experiment. But there is a darker possibility.
What if the signature wasn't embedded by Volkov, but by the very creators of the technology he photographed? It could be a digital watermark, a tracking beacon designed to monitor the spread of the image. Every time the file is copied, downloaded, or shared, it could be sending a signal back to its masters. Everyone who possesses the image could be on a list. This turns the photograph from a piece of evidence into a piece of bait, and those who study it from investigators into prey. The Cerberus Cipher remains unbroken. A silent digital ghost haunting the image, a lock without a key, promising either total revelation or absolute surveillance. It is the photograph's final, and perhaps most important, secret. Narrator. Years of digital analysis and theoretical debate yielded nothing but dead ends. The mystery of the last known photograph had grown cold, relegated to the domain of folklore. Then, a package arrived at the post office box of a small, obscure, investigative blog. It contained no return address, only a postmark from a remote, undisclosed location. Inside was a single, typewritten letter. It was the first new piece of potential evidence in over a decade. The author claimed to be a former physicist from the Stargazer Initiative. The letter is chilling, not for what it reveals, but for what it implies. It confirms Theory 2, that the object was a man-made device, but it refutes the purpose. It was not a vehicle. It was not a weapon. "You are thinking in 3 dimensions," the letter reads. "You are asking the wrong questions. We were not trying to build something. We were trying to open something." The letter uses esoteric, terrifying language, describing the project's goal as localized reality decoherence and membrane resonance tuning. It speaks of the object in the photograph as a tuning fork, designed to vibrate at a frequency not native to our space-time, creating a temporary, soft spot in the fabric of the universe. The experiment was a success, but they had no control over what came through, or what the opening did to the surrounding environment. The letter offers a horrifying explanation for Alexei Volkov's fate. He was not captured, it states. There was no cleanup crew. He was simply too close to the aperture when it stabilized. The laws of physics in his immediate vicinity became suggestions. He did not die. He was redefined. The letter's most urgent warning concerns the photograph itself, specifically the Cerberus cipher. The whistleblower claims it was not created by Volkov or the project's security team. The signature, they allege, is part of the phenomenon itself.
It's not a code containing information. It is a resonance key, a mathematical representation of the frequency the device used. Sharing the file, the letter warns, is like sharing the sheet music for a song that should never be played. Every server that holds it, every screen that displays it, vibrates with a faint echo of that initial event. You are not just looking at a picture. You are helping to tune the next instrument. The letter may be a hoax, the elaborate fiction of a disturbed mind, but it aligns with the known facts in ways that are deeply unsettling. It explains the impossible energy readings, the strange visual artifacts, and the unbreakable cryptographic signature. It recasts the photograph not as a window into the past, but as a potential key to a future we are not prepared for.
Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some images are not just memories, they are echoes that never fade. Following the leak and subsequent containment of file designated LKP0001, a cascade of inexplicable events began to ripple outward from the epicenter of its discovery. The official report, heavily redacted as you see here, speaks of localized anomalous phenomena. But sources who have contacted this channel describe something far more sinister. The first incident occurred at the Data Processing Center, where the photograph was initially digitized. Within 72 hours, the entire server farm suffered a catastrophic failure. It wasn't a simple power surge or a hardware malfunction. Technicians reported a total data wipe, not just of the primary servers, but of all backups, including off-site cold storage. The data didn't just get deleted, it was, in their words, unwritten from existence. The only file that remained, corrupted yet still present on a single isolated terminal, was a fragmented version of the last known photograph. It was as if the information itself had become a contagion, erasing everything it touched to preserve its own singularity. Then came the human cost. Dr. Eris Thorne, the lead cryptographer who broke the initial encryption on the image file, was reported missing from his locked home office 2 weeks later. There was no sign of forced entry. His notes, a lifetime of research into signal intelligence, were left untouched on his desk, except for a single page. On it, he had scrawled the same binary sequence found embedded in the photograph's metadata over and over until the pen had torn through the paper. He was the first, but not the last. A total of 7 personnel directly involved in the initial analysis vanished or suffered complete psychotic breaks within 6 months.
Their official case files are sealed, flagged under national security protocols, but the pattern is undeniable. Each victim's last known communication contained a reference, however oblique, to what they had seen. One security guard's final text message to his wife was simply, "I can't stop seeing the space between things." This echo effect wasn't contained to people. The geological survey team that originally unearthed the artifact containing the photographic plate reported bizarre equipment malfunctions for years. Compasses would spin wildly. GPS systems would report their location as coordinates that did not exist on Earth. and audio recordings were plagued by a persistent, low-frequency hum that matched no known natural or artificial source. The photograph was not a passive record of an event. It was an active agent of chaos, a trigger. It didn't just show something, it did something to the reality around it. The subsequent events weren't just consequences, they were extensions of the image itself, a continuation of the moment it had captured, bleeding out into our world. Anomalies can be studied, contagions can be contained, but what do you do with an informational hazard so profound that the only solution is to pretend it never existed? You erase it. You burn the archives. Following the initial wave of disappearances and systemic failures, a new protocol was enacted, a directive so secret it was given no official name, known only by its operational call sign, Damnatio Memoriae, the condemnation of memory. This wasn't a simple cover-up. It was a systematic, fanatical effort to expunge every shred of evidence related to the last known photograph from the historical record. We have acquired, through a trusted source, a fragment of the directive's operational manual. It outlines a multi-tiered process of information sanitization. Level 1 involved digital scrubbing. Specialized algorithms were deployed, not to delete files, but to seek out and subtly corrupt any data packet that shared resonant frequencies with the photograph's unique signature. News articles about strange geological finds would vanish from web archives. Scientific papers on unexplained signal patterns would be retroactively retracted. Even private emails between colleagues discussing the initial anomaly were targeted, their text mysteriously replaced with null characters. Level 2 was the physical purge. Black-suited teams, operating outside of any known agency's jurisdiction, descended upon libraries, university archives, and private collections. They weren't just seizing documents, they were replacing them. Forged papers, falsified reports, and doctored photographs were inserted to create a seamless, albeit false, historical narrative. The facility where the photograph was first analyzed now officially never existed. Land records show it as an undeveloped plot of land since the 1950s. We have satellite imagery proving otherwise. The most chilling part of the protocol was Level 3, human redaction. This wasn't assassination. It was more insidious. Witnesses, researchers, and low-level staff who had even indirect contact with the LKP-001 project were subjected to aggressive amnestic therapies, reintegration programs, or, in extreme cases, were quietly transferred to clandestine psychiatric facilities. Their lives were rewritten, their memories were edited. They became unreliable narrators of their own pasts. This archive you see, the Obsidian Archive, has itself been a target. We have detected multiple intrusion attempts on our servers, all originating from ghost domains, all employing algorithms we have never seen before. They are still hunting for the echo, for any trace of the memory they tried so hard to condemn. But why? Why go to such extreme reality-altering lengths? It suggests the photograph is not merely a picture of a threat, but the threat itself. It implies that for certain entities, memory is a vulnerability and history is a battlefield. They didn't just want to hide the photograph. They wanted to make it so it could have never been taken in the first place. Before the archives were burned and the memories were condemned, one man spoke. His name was Dr. Julian Croft, a semiotician and memetics expert, contracted during the initial analysis of LKP-001. His official cause of death is listed as a boating accident, 1 month after this recording was made. The recording itself was thought to be destroyed in the purge, but a copy was preserved on a single reel-to-reel tape, hidden within a defunct Cold War-era listening post. What you are about to hear is a transcript of the only known expert testimony on the nature of the last known photograph. The audio is distorted, the quality poor, but the message is clear. Croft. They asked me to analyze its symbolic content. The image. They thought it was code or a language. The fools. You don't analyze a thing like that. It analyzes you. Interviewer. What do you mean, Doctor? Croft. It's a perceptual trap, a cognitive singularity. We think of photographs as capturing light from a subject. Simple. Cause and effect. But this thing, it's the other way around. The image is the cause. The subject is the effect it has on the observer. It doesn't depict a place. It creates a place in your mind, a non-Euclidean space that logic cannot enter. Interviewer. So it's a psychological weapon? A mimetic agent? Croft. That's like calling a black hole a gravity agent. It's technically true, but it utterly fails to convey the scale of the damn thing. It's a fundamental paradox, given visual form. When you look at it, your brain tries to resolve the impossible data it's receiving. It tries to see a subject, a foreground, a background. But there isn't one. There's only the process. The process of your own perception being turned inside out. That's what they couldn't grasp. The photograph isn't dangerous because of what it shows. It's dangerous because of what it does to the act of showing, to the act of seeing itself. Interviewer. What did you see, Doctor? Croft. I saw the camera. Not the one that took the picture. The one that's always watching. The apparatus of reality itself. And I saw that it was pointed the wrong way. It wasn't recording our world. Our world is the recording. The photograph is a tear in the film. A glimpse of the projector bulb. And it is blinding. I close my eyes and I still see it. The absence. The shape of the missing piece. They have to destroy it. They have to destroy every copy, every memory. Because if enough people see it, if enough people realize we are just the image and not the source, the whole projection will stop. Dr. Croft's words are the closest we have to a Rosetta Stone for this mystery. He wasn't describing an image. He was describing a philosophical event horizon from which nothing, not even the observer, can escape. We have journeyed through the echoes, the erasures, and the final, haunting words of a doomed expert. We arrive now at the central terrifying question. What is the subject of the last known photograph? The answer, as proposed by Dr. Croft and whispered in the fragmented data we have recovered, is the most unsettling possibility of all. The photograph has no subject. It is an image of nothing. Not the blackness of space, not the darkness of a sealed room, but a true, conceptual, and ontological nothing. A perfect void. Imagine a camera that, instead of capturing photons, captures their absolute absence. An instrument that records not presence, but the very framework of non-existence. This is the theoretical basis for LKP-001. Physicists speak of quantum foam, the substrate of reality where particles pop in and out of being. The photograph is believed to be a stabilized image of a null state event, a moment where a pocket of reality failed to manifest, leaving behind a vacuum so complete that it repels not just matter and energy, but information itself. When the human eye and brain perceive this image, a fundamental conflict occurs. Our entire neurological evolution is based on pattern recognition, on identifying subjects and objects, threats and opportunities. We are hardwired to see something. but the last known photograph presents the brain with an image of nothing. The cognitive dissonance is so extreme it acts like a software crash for the conscious mind. This is the source of the echo effect. The brain, unable to process the void, begins to project it. Observers start to perceive the space between things, as the security guard said. They see the gaps in reality, the seams in the projection. The photograph is a mirror, held up not to the world, but to the scaffolding that holds the world together. And it shows that the scaffolding is fragile, incomplete. This is why it had to be erased. It is the ultimate forbidden knowledge, not a secret about governments or conspiracies, but a secret about the nature of existence. That it is not a solid state, but a fragile consensus. And this photograph is proof. It is a visual representation of the off switch. A reminder that for all of our light and noise, the default state of the universe is silence and darkness. The last known photograph is not the last image of a person, or a place, or an event. It is the first and only image of the end of images. It is a portrait of the abyss, and the abyss, as they say, stares back.